I don't know if you've heard about the Mud Run before. If you pay attention to Mia Dallas very often, I released an article about the Mud Run, which was held yesterday, Saturday, April 13th, in Fort Worth at LaGray Field. And if you have had a chance to pay attention to the news today, then you heard that a man drowned during that mud run during the competitive division, which the wave started at 2 o'clock, and that's the one that I was in along with my boyfriend. I just want to set the record straight that it's not about whether or not people could swim. It's frustrating seeing all these comments where people are blaming the victim, saying that he should have walked around and that he shouldn't have swum it. Everything I read and everything I've heard, he was an amazing athlete. In my firm belief, he drowned saving someone because we were in that water. I was in that water, and it was terrifying. They let so many people in the water for a 75-yard river that should have been swum across, that had 2 guide ropes that guided you from one end to the other, along with a floating platform in the middle that had a lifeguard standing on it. I guess there were a couple employees on either end. I saw one lifeguard, a girl wearing a swimsuit, and then maybe 2, but I know I saw one. That's all that I saw. The only other thing I saw was crying, panic-stricken people around me, and all I could feel was people grabbing at me because they're so scared because they were drowning. Everyone around us was drowning. They let far too many people in the water. I was ahead of my boyfriend. By the time he got in the water, he heard employees yelling, "Stop! Quit letting people in the water! Stop letting people in!" It was clearly an issue of gross negligence. They allowed far too many people into the water. It had nothing to do with swimming ability because even so, there were guide ropes that people could grab. If they had just allowed a proper number of people with a proper amount of supervision and observation to know whether or not, 1, people were in the water, 2, whether they were above or underneath the water, but ultimately 3, whether or not they were able to come out the other end. That's what I'm concerned about. So everyone can sit here and point fingers toward the victim and say, oh, he should have walked around and shouldn't have swum. Everything I read, he was an athlete. Everything else I read said you don't have to be a swimmer, although I would assume you would want to be able to swim considering you cannot touch the ground. But I don't think it had much to do with his swimming capability. My assumption would be that someone grabbed him, that there were panic-stricken, crying people around him as well, considering he was in the water the same time as I was. So I would assume he went to save someone, like my boyfriend did, who didn't get out of the water for minutes after me because he was still in the river trying to save people who were panicked and terrified. And I couldn't do anything because I was too scared to get back in and help him. I had one woman who was so scared, crying, panicking, literally drowning next to me, that she reached out, grabbed my head so hard, and pulled me underwater that I didn't think I was coming back up. Oh, and did I mention that if you were in the competitive division that you were forced, in order to potentially get a trophy and to place in the end, you had to wear pants and you had to wear boots, meaning mid-rise, hiking boots, military boots, some sort of boots. Read the FAQ. It tells you on the Mud Run website what we were wearing. So to everyone who wants to blame the victim for not walking around the water or for not choosing a different path, I say that you get in the water with that many people and that many terrified people around you with so few people observing and confirming that people are okay, then you might be able to judge this. To everyone else, you need to realize this is the Mud Run's fault. The victim should have no blame in this. This is the Mud Run's fault. I do not care if I signed a waiver. Like I said, gross negligence is not covered in that waiver, and this was very, very grossly neglected. That's all I have to say. Mud Run needs to be shut down until they learn how to properly follow safety procedure, and that is exactly what happened. I was in the water. I have witnesses. There are other people in the water who I guarantee you will say the same thing. That's all I have to say. Don't know what else to say about it. I'm livid. It's terrifying. I knew immediately someone was left in that water. So how in the world people working didn't have a concept that might be possible is beyond me. The fact that his girlfriend waiting at the finish line had to stand there and realize her boyfriend, who was an athlete, didn't show back up when there were little kids running by, and then they had to find him the next. Ridiculous. The Mud Run either needs to be shut down or it absolutely needs to have EMS at every single obstacle, not only at the finish, not only at the starting line, of a 10K with 18 to 30 obstacles throughout it, all involving water pretty much. And even if they weren't all involving water, if I break a finger, I want EMS there. I don't have to go 2.5, 3, 6 miles to find them. Whatever. No one should have drowned. This is the mud run's fault. This is no one's fault but the mud run's fault, and it needs to be shut down, or it needs to learn proper safety procedure that should be enforced. Enjoy.